Please subscribe to our channel if you find this information helpful. Good morning, friends. Today we're going to discuss what makes for an ethical breeder. And some of what I will say will apply to the health of the animal, and some of what I say will apply to the temperament of the animal. First, we're going to cover the health aspects first, and then we're going to cover the temperament aspects. So, the Carfax for dog breeding would be the O.F.A database. There's no such thing as a Carfax for dogs, but there is something called the O.F.A database. An ethical breeder will x-ray the elbows and hips of his dogs. And if a breeder tells you there's no problem, well, how do you know that's true or not? So you have to look up the dog in the O.F.A database. You go to ofa.org, as I'm showing you, and you're going to look up one of my dogs as an example, Born von Bolschfried, the son of Yukon von Perot. And as you can see, his information comes up. And if you click on the information, you'll see the hip and elbow scores, and you can find the scores right there without having to rely on my word for it. You should be able to do the same thing for other breeders. You should be able to look up their hips and elbows on the O.F.A database. Now, if a breeder tells you there's no problem, well, how do you know that? You have to be able to check. Now, how would you look up a dog? Well, in my case, on my website, I'll list the dog's DN number. Now, over here, I already list his O.F.A numbers. But let's say you didn't have that number. You would then select the dog's DN number, as I'm showing you right here, and then you would copy and paste that DN number or his AKC registration number into the O.F.A database, as I'm showing you, and you would look up the dog by their DN number. Or you would need to know his exact registered name, not his call name. So you can look it up by the registered name or by the DN number, and as you can see, as you punch in the information, Ganta's Jake comes up and his hip and elbow scores comes up, and it shows that he's the son of Born, and Born is the son of Yukon von Perot, making Jake the grandson of Yukon von Perot. So the cost of a bad hip surgery at today's time, 2023, a friend of mine had a puppy he imported and at a very low price, and he had no x-rays of the parent dogs. Well, the surgery cost him $4,500 to fix the hips of that dog at a young age, only 6 months old. And either the dog will suffer for the rest of its life and has to be put down, or the dog needs surgery. So the cost of you not doing it will cost you $4,500 per hip, which is $9,000 to fix both hips for not taking care of the x-rays of the parent dogs. So a breeder does not take care of the x-rays of the parent dogs cannot offer you a hip and elbow guarantee because they simply don't know in a verifiable way what the hips are. Now in Germany they use the A stamp system, but in America they use the O.F.A. Here you see an A stamp from a German pedigree, oftentimes called pink papers or pink pedigree. And here are some other diseases which are common, and you would use EMBARK as a way to test for those diseases. So again, going back to my dog Jake, you found that you can find him in the database. The cost of you not doing it is a very expensive surgery. So you're going to go to the pedigree database, as I'm doing now, and you're going to look up, in my case, I'm looking up the grandfather to Jake, or Born's father, Yukon von Perot. He's a very famous dog. Now, if you scroll quickly, if you click on Yukon, you're going to see quickly on top of the screen dogs in wheelchair devices. And those wheelchairs, you see the wheelchairs at the top of the page with dogs in the wheelchairs? Those are dogs which have DM or have bad hips. So if you look at Yukon von Perot, he is Bundesprogen times 3, or the German national champion times 3. He had a Schutzen 3. He was also core classed, meaning very excellent anatomical structure. And here you see the breed survey. Now, if you want to know what the breed survey is about, you can go to translate.google.com and translate from German into English. But over here, it's already been done for you. If you look at this dog, you'll see his ancestors. He's the son of Karl von Fingelhoff, who himself was an excellent dog. And if you look at the dog reproduces the average of his parents. In other words, a dog itself may have good hips, but his brothers and sisters may have bad hips. So you look at the parentage and you notice all the dogs in the pedigree have HD normal. So we're going to look up Karn, And you can see that Karn was a V-rated dog, and you can see all the dogs themselves had HD normal hips. So every dog has HDA stamp. If you look at Karn's mom, uh, this is Born von Oberhauser, his dad, HD normal. If you look at every dog on this pedigree, you'll see HD normal. Again, now the maternal side, Ashra von Perot, you'll see she HD normal. Her parents HD normal, and so forth. You will see every dog in this pedigree having excellent hips. So the dog itself can have excellent hips, but the parents around him may not have excellent hips. And so how do you know what the dog will reproduce? So not only does the pedigree database exist, but there's another database called the working dog database. I believe it's in Europe, and the pedigree database is American to my knowledge. And let's look up that dog in that website. Now, we're going to bring it up in a second. Now, there is a score called a ZW score, and that score shows you the average of the dog's ancestry. So let me bring up Yukon through the working dog database, and the search is a little slow, but let me show you what that shows us. So this is the working dog database, another valuable resource for finding the dog's titles, as well as hip scores, as well as any other genetic testing that was done. It's all listed in this database, and the accuracy of the records is maintained with vigor. So it's a trustworthy source for gaining information about dogs. So this is another resource you can use as you research a dog's pedigree. And people often say, well, why do I care about a dog's pedigree? Well, this is why. It shows you the dog's genetic testing that was done, both on hips and elbows, as well as any other diseases. And it shows you the titles the dog's parents had, which is talking about the dog's temperament. So finally, the database responded. Here's Yukon on that database, and notice he's on the he's the SV, the very Schuferhonda, and he's on the FCI. In other words, this is the European body regulating all the other registries, like the AKC, the UKC, the Russian RFK, the Belgian LASH. In other words, every AKC of the world in each respective country reports up to the FCI. So here you'll see his ZW score is 86, and any number below 100 or 120 means it's a dog with good hips, not only in his own right, but that entire family of dogs, cousins and aunts and nephews, has all been tested, and this is like an aggregate score of all the dogs in the family. So he's not an outlier. It's representing a good genetic average. Now I don't know what this number exactly means per se, but any number below 100 or 120 is a good hips dog, meaning he's good not only in his own right, but he's not an outlier. He's not the exception to the rule. He is representative of the average of his family and his line. That's how that ZW score is meant to be read. So if you look at the ZW score, that tells you the dog's hips and everything genetically around him. So he's not an outlier, as I said earlier. Now, the characteristics you're looking for is titles, not just physical health, but temperament. And so the reason you title dogs is to see what they're about. So Yukon Van Perot represents a grandfather or a great grandfather in our lines, and that is why we use him in our breeding program. Now here is a screen snapshot of some titles for confirmation titles as well as Schutzen titles. I'm not going to go into it because of the length that would be required in this video, but I invite you to look these up, or whatever the titles are in your breed of choice. Of course, I'm obviously focusing on German Shepherds. By doing confirmation titles and protection titles and obedience titles, the dogs are highly tested for confirmation as well as work. Now here you see Mag von Volschried being worked in protection on a bite sleeve. This protection phase is part of the sport of Schutzhund. Mag van Volschried is the grandson of Frenzy van Roerhem, and Frenzy is the mother of our dog Born van Volschried. In other words, that dog is the nephew of Born. Now here you see Dex van Lupus Alpha doing tracking. He's the son of Wukan van Perot, not to be confused with Yukon van Perot, doing tracking. This is also a phase of the sport of Schutzhund, tracking. The other part was bite work. Tracking is also a component of Schutzhund. This dog will lie down when to indicate an article that has been found, and this is a form of olfactory obedience. Why is this important? Well, every dog has a good sense of smell, but what you're showing and teaching the dog here is how to persist in the face of adversity and to keep on a scent, doing footstep tracking until you find the object you're looking for. Such tracking and genetic selection for olfactory obedience is useful, for example, in our search and rescue dogs, which were used after 9/11. Here the dog lay down to show he found the object, and the handler picks up the object to show to the judge. So you're testing for characteristics which are useful to mankind. Tracking, protection. Here the dog is doing obedience. This is Yukon Van Perot, who you saw in the pedigree database earlier with his owner Peter Rhodes. This video, I believe, was filmed either in 2006 or 2008 in Germany. And here you saw him going from a dead run into a walk, maintaining the heel position. He's doing what's called fussing or fuss, which is German for foot or follow my foot or heel with me, if you think of it that way. So this dog is demonstrating a tremendous off-leash obedience and healing. Notice the focus on the handler's face and notice the enthusiasm level of the dog as he's performing this work. He's performing the obedience exercise with enthusiasm and with heart, not just going about it in a very drudgery-like way, but he's doing it with heart and with spirit and showing a tremendous bond with the handler as part of carrying out this work. He will heal through a figure eight through this crowd of 4 people, all the time maintaining tremendous control of the dog, and the dog sticks to his left leg like he's glued there. So now the dog will demonstrate healing and will perform a sit stay and a down stay, a sit out of motion and a down out of motion. Here, this is the sit out of motion. And the handler walks away while the dog maintains the sit stay. The handler returns to the dog, and now the dog will be given the command to walk. He will run. The dog will change pace, still maintaining healing. And from a dead run, he'll drop into a down upon the Platz command, or German for down, being issued. The handler has run down the length of the field, and the dog will be recalled into the front, as you will see in a minute. Now, this has to do with a dog which is highly biddable. The dog wants to work. The dog wants to please. The dog wants to have a job in life. These are the qualities you want in a working dog, and for that matter, in any dog. So the dog returned to the handler. He went into what's called the finish. The dog will now be walked from the previous exercise. Now he has been given the stand stay. He locks up in the stand stay. And now the handler has run downfield. Dog has been given the recall again from the stand stay back into the front, and then he will go from the front into the finish. And at this point, the dog has demonstrated sit stay, down stay, and stand stay. Now the dog will be given the dumbbell exercises. He will then retrieve a dumbbell on the flat. For those of you from the AKC dog sport, this will be familiar to you. The dog is retrieving a pretty heavy dumbbell, bringing it back to its handler, handing it to the handler. The dog will then go into the finish upon the handler taking the dumbbell upon command, not on his own. And then the dumbbell will be tossed over a jump, and the dog must return with the dumbbell without returning back over the jump, not around the jump. Now the dog returns with the dumbbell back over the jump, not around it. Again, going to the front position. Then the dog will go into the finish again, back onto the left leg, around the handler into the finish. And now the dog will jump over an A-frame and bring the dumbbell back over an A-frame, which not only is an obedience test, but also tests the dog's hips, because you can't do this if you have bad hips. So this sport acts as a selection criteria, in a sense, for dogs which can perform at this level. Only dogs with the right genetics, when they receive the right training, can perform at this level. Now the dog will be given a send away command. So he's healing, and then he's given a send away command. The dog will drop into a dead run from a send away, and is perfectly obedient to the handler's voice at a distance off leash. And so, wouldn't you rather have a puppy from a dog like this as a grandfather and not from just any ordinary dog? That is why pedigrees matter. Pedigrees matter because the dogs in the pedigree demonstrate a certain performance level in protection, tracking, and obedience, and that you want that as a puppy buyer. So I hope this video has been helpful to you, and I hope you will like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you very much. We'll see you back soon.